commentaries and summaries of what he learned and revised those lessons at night time. And even when he was sleeping, Abu Khalid, he wouldn't sleep. He would lie down and he would maybe lie against the wall, and he would keep his eyes closed momentarily, and then when he felt he had a bit more urge or energy, he would get up and start doing writing books and so on. And he...
Yeah, I heard an anecdote about him that he had a small table, and when he became exhausted, he'd lie down on it, you know, like a driver's nap.
Yeah.
And then he'd revive again.
Just to get back, just whatever, just to help him.
Didn't sleep in a bed for years.
And he lived a very short life, Abu Khalid. And some say it was around 45 that he passed away, in fact. So even in that short space of time, the contributions he made are astounding, to say the least. They say that, for example, when we look at all his contribution and his works, and we'll refer to some of them later on, that they equate for the time period that of his lifespan and what he contributed in terms of knowledge. They reckon that it was around, he'd written around 200 pages a day.
Gosh.
So you're thinking, where does he get the time to go to 11 lessons, do commentaries, write books, seek knowledge, teach other people? Again, there's different makeup, Abu Khalid.
Yeah, you get this vision of this tremendous energy, buzzing with energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah, as I say, there was the melting pot, and the environment also helped. And obviously he was born in around the 13th century, and this time was a great time for seeking knowledge. So, but what he was very famous for, Abu Khalid, was his piety and his taqwa and fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. In fact, even so, to a point where he wouldn't eat from the lands of Sham, or those areas of Sham, because it was deemed to be a waqf or an endowment from the government, and he thought that this land should have been given to the Bayt al-Mal, should have been given and distributed to the poor and distributed to different people. So he, by his own decision, didn't want to eat from the land. So anytime a food would come to him, he wouldn't take it, and he would only take it when it came from his homeland or somewhere he knew where the source was coming from.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Unlike us, where we just eat freely, we don't question anything. But this is fear. He didn't want anything haram or anything possibly, even though it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
This was the height of his taqwa and piety. Like he, you know, and we find that there's so many examples of, even in the past, some scholars in the past, this idea that they wouldn't eat from the land and so on because they felt that the rulers didn't give justice to the people and so on, and they wouldn't eat from it. And in fact, there's a story that one time the scholar decided not to eat from this land and so on, and a woman who was in a jail, in fact, or she was confined, she decided to make the scholar some food, and she managed to get the food to the scholar, and she realised that, you know, that he didn't want to eat it. So when she asked him, so why didn't you want to eat the food from this that I gave you? It's not from this land, I made it myself from my own produce and so on. He said, but the plate that you used came from the rulers, or came from those people. So even so much, you know, the piety of the scholars in the past, they didn't want to have any doubts, Abu Khalid, and they wanted their rizq to be halal. And they wanted the food they eat to be halal, to be permissible. And this was the height of their piety and taqwa. And again, his endless thirst for knowledge, and his thirst to seek knowledge from over 20 celebrated teachers, if you like, at that time. Huge scholars in all the fields, in fiqh, in Qur'an, in hadith, in usul fiqh, all of these branches of knowledge. He excelled in all of them, Abu Khalid. In fact, became known as Shaykh al-Islam. And this term of Shaykh al-Islam, Shaykh al-Islam, you know, when they use this term Shaykh al-Islam, like the Shaykh of Islam, it's given to somebody who's got to the status of where he knows everything about that particular field. For example, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, they say, because he knew everything about the Hanbali madhab, all the issues in and out, to the point that he became to a level of a mujtahid, that he became to that level of, you know, the highest level of scholarly attributes, that he himself can become more, he can start to deduce rulings on his own account, based on maybe this madhab, or this, he's qualified to do that. So he was like, if you like, the Shaykh al-Islam in the madhabi of Shafi'i, Imam al-Shafi'i. So he learned it inside out, Abu Khalid. And he wasn't a blind follower of Imam al-Shafi'i, and he didn't take it everything. In fact, he differed from in many issues. And just as a quick issue, just to show that he was always conscious of the evidence and so on, that Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah, he thought that, he was of the opinion that when you make tayammum, that the tayammum doesn't go just to the wrist, that it goes as far as the elbows. However, Imam Nawawi, he differed on him, and he went back to the source, and he found that the hadith that what he deemed to be weak, and he said that no, it's only to the wrist. So he differed with him in that, although he was the Shaykh al-Islam and not madhab. So this shows what? This shows there's nothing wrong with studying madhabs, but as long as we're not inclined to the fanatical side, that we don't look at other opinion and that he's my Imam. Imam Shafi was a great scholar of Islam. No doubt he was the giver of knowledge, if you like. He was one of the great sources of knowledge. But that didn't stop him from going into it and investigating and going to each issue. So this was what he excelled. Again, he had a very fast memory, Abu Khalid, and again, he's compiled many famous books which we know, such as Arba'in an-Nawawi, this 40 hadith, which we all teach, isn't it, in the mosques, and we teach our kids.
I think it's the most famous one in English.
Yeah, and even Riyadh al-Salihin, which is the Gardens of Paradise. These books, Abu Khalid, there's nothing really, unique about them in a sense. The Arba'in an-Nawawi, what's so great about it is that it has hadiths relate to all aspects of the religion. So, for example, you have the hadiths which, that say, well, this is half of knowledge. For example, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The intentions are all actions are by intention. This is like they consider this half of knowledge or a third of knowledge. Yeah. So important. So the important core elements, you find them compiled in these books. And why did they compile these books? Was he the only one? No, he wasn't. Many scholars performed these. Why? Because there was a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever preserves 40 hadith from my ummah, then he'll be raised in the status of pious people. So they took that hadith and they all decided to compile something good. Although the scholars say it was a weak hadith, but again, it gave many fruits. Again, he was so pious, and he gave these books such as Riyadh al-Salihin. This book, you could say is so famous, if one of the most famous books after the Quran, in fact. In it, what is in this book, Abu Khalid? In it is etiquette, behavior, things on conduct and how to like the issues we talk about, etiquettes of the teacher and so on, and so on, all the issues dealing in Islam. And a beautiful book, easy book. What is it? Quran and Sunnah. That's all he did. But Allah Azza wa Jalla made this book fly and go throughout the world. Why? Because of his ikhlas, because of his sincerity, because of his taqwa for Allah. Allah has given, this is like Sadaqah Jariyah, he's dead now, we're benefiting now from his books. Right, yeah. To how many deeds is this Imam is getting for this, Allah, Allah.
Counting up on his
every time it's skating on his scale. He also did a commentary on Imam Sahih Muslim, Sharh al-Muslim. He did so many things in Fiqh al-Minhaj and so many famous books which maybe are not translated into the English language and maybe should be in the future. So again, his books are used now, and again, Allah Azza wa Jal rewarding him for his piety and his ikhlas and sincerity. And again, what he was fantastic for was his avoiding of the delights of the world, concentrating on the studies, not indulging in those frivolities, keeping himself to himself, keeping his life simple, keeping it in a way that is not going to take away from his remembrance of Allah. Even the mubahat, the things which are allowable, he wouldn't even go near them. He would always keep himself in that frame of mind. And to do that takes great sacrifice. We're not all asked to be Imam Nawawis, but certainly what we should do is try to really get our frame of mind into the significance of learning knowledge and how important that the scholars gave to seeking knowledge. And we mentioned all the hadiths before. We can all do it at some level, Abu Khalid. We can do it, for example, slowly bringing you up, decide to do some tafsir, maybe decide to learn some fiqh, and to join the talks, if there's talks going in our local area, to try to come to those. These are the majalis al-ilm. These are the ones where the angels, their wings cover these majalis or these sittings or these circles of knowledge, and to be in the blessing of that thing. And we know that everything in the dunya is cursed, except those dhikr, those remembrance of Allah, and those who remember Allah, and the teacher and the student. So we want to be, inshallah, we try to bring ourselves closer to the people of knowledge and try to seek knowledge as best as we can. This is very, very important.
Well, Yousef, unfortunately, the clock has beaten us once again, as the poet has sung. Thanks very much for coming along and discussing all these points. And you also, dear viewers, thank you for watching. We hope, inshallah, you'll continue to watch us the same time next week. From Yousef Say and myself, Uthman Barry, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.